All right, thank you guys for joining us on the very new Gentleman's Journey podcast. My name is Isaac Sutton. I'm your brand new host, and today we have three distinguished members of the Chi Psi Fraternity, all Epsilon alumni and active member. So I'm just going to introduce them real quick. This is Thejas, James, and Saketh, all representing Alpha Epsilon. Again, I'm Isaac Sutton from Alpha Phi Delta, and we're going to ask a couple questions today about the refounding of Alpha Epsilon, how that's been. So real quick, I'm just going to get right into the questions. First of all, you guys can answer this in however you'd like, but what led you all to refound Alpha Epsilon?
As a larger group, we all know what happened in 2016, but I think it'd be better to talk individually about it.
For me, I definitely wasn't considering joining a fraternity at all, and so I viewed it as two things. One, as an opportunity just to meet people and an avenue that maybe I can create a way where this is something that I can do in a way that is productive for me. And so I saw this as an opportunity to kind of create something on campus that was different from a lot of what was already there, and also accomplish the goal of expanding my personal network as well. And so I think it was a really cool way for us to kind of meet each other with the same values of let's do something that is a positive force in Ann Arbor, and something that maybe hopefully rubs off on other organizations as well. And so I think, obviously we're slowly just laying the bricks still, but I think it's been a really cool journey for that.
Yeah, I can echo the first part of Brother Rengaswamy's statement of I wasn't thinking about joining a fraternity at all. And then at the time, two other Epsilon alums, Brother Dorito and Brother Van Dyke, are my relatives, uncle and cousin respectively, and he just asked, hear Aiden out. So I did, and I was hesitant, but the idea of creating, at Michigan, I would say non-Greek members have a generally negative view of Greek life, period, but the idea of being able to create what I would say is what Greek life ideally should be, seemed fun, from starting from scratch and being able to just kind of put those pieces together and try and create something. And I figured, what's the worst that can happen? So,
Perfect. Yeah, I guess I can kind of echo what both of them said in that I didn't want to really join a fraternity when I got to college. But I guess it kind of speaks to how there was a need for change at the university, especially in terms of Greek life and kind of how it was viewed. So like they just mentioned, it was a perfect opportunity to build something new and kind of rub off on the general community well. And then personally, from my perspective of when I was introduced to the fraternity, our former number one, Thejas Rengaswamy, he was a friend of mine from high school, and he had mentioned to me I've met these few people that are talking about building up a new fraternity, and I was initially very kind of opposed to the idea, but after hearing that it was something that we could build up from the ground up and do how we wanted to do it, that really kind of encouraged me to come around more often and speak to other brothers like Brother Mona Fisher and Rosenberger. So yeah, I think that kind of wrapped up.
Phenomenal, that's great. I think one thing we're going to do now is we're going to go a little bit more personal and understand your all's roles within the Alpha. I want to see, you guys can just introduce yourself, your name, your past involvement, your current involvement, how you relate to Alpha Epsilon. So you just go down the line.
Sure. So my name is Thejas Rengaswamy. I was the third refounder to kind of join the effort back in 2020. And so my initial role was as number 3. And so during the entire colony process, I was number 3. And then this past semester, I was elected to be president. And so I've been serving that role and will be serving that role in next semester as well.
So I'm James Wishart. I was the second refounder. I served as the number 2 through the colony period and through our first little bit of being an alpha before the elections. I'm now a graduated alum, but I'll be pursuing a master's at Michigan, so I'll be the lodge director at Epsilon for the next year.
My name is Saketh. I was the 5th refounder of the group, and I initially joined on as a recruitment chair and continued for my 2.5 years in the fraternity. And I recently graduated this past December, and I've been working in Chicago as a software engineer, but planning on coming back around the lodge more often and coming to conventions like this, so I'm excited to still be around and be involved. So yeah.
Yeah, phenomenal. Three very different paths right now. We have an undergraduate, graduate, and post-grad, and all started in one place. That's awesome. Really quick, I'm going to ask another question. Just describe your first year back as an Alpha. You could talk about maybe some of your accomplishments, a big challenge, really wherever you guys want to go with this, just whoever wants to answer that.
I think part of the first year, I can say was a lot of just finding our footing. The idea we were given to do this is very different from Greek life at Michigan. There were even some differences that the corporation, alumni corporation, wanted from even other alphas at Chi Psi, among which everyone has to live in the lodge, structured formal dinners once a week, so on and so forth. So it was a lot of finding our footing and just, making sure we solidify an identity. And I mean, I think Brother Rengaswamy can speak better on that, honestly.
No, yeah, absolutely, and I think when you say biggest challenge, I think one of the biggest challenges we had was everyone kind of had held this entire idea, this us being back on campus and the refounding in such high regard, right? And so everyone's expectations for each other were so high that it kind of almost led to conflict, because everyone was trying to push the boundaries in every single direction of how can we be the best possible as quickly as possible. And I think something that I realized, and I think we need to all kind of continue having these conversations, is it's been 1 year since we came back, and so these things take time, and I think the amount of progress that we've made in this first year in terms of philanthropy, in terms of our own brotherhood and living together, and also just our presence on campus externally has been phenomenal. And I think I couldn't have imagined such huge amounts of progress in 1 year, and I'm really excited for the years to come, and I'm sure both of you guys would echo that as well.
Yeah, I think going off of what James said with trying to find our footing and our identity, one of the biggest struggles we had early on was that we were following a lot of the traditions that had gone in the past, because we saw how much the alumni and the past members of the fraternity really loved the fraternity and loved the lodge and how things went on when they were around, and we wanted to make sure that they would be they would like to come back to the lodge, and they like what they see and are always welcome. But that came with, we also want to have our own identity. We also want to be our own fraternity. We want to not just follow the traditions of the past, but become a group ourselves. And so I think I would say, from a recruitment standpoint, that was the biggest struggle, was making sure that we brought on people that saw that vision of we are building something for ourselves, not just for these alumni who have been supporting us this entire time. So.
Yeah, I think each of your responses really filtered in well with the positions you all had held within the Alpha. I can see it. You guys exemplified pretty well. So I know you mentioned a little bit about the lodge, and I'll just give some context for viewers and listeners. Alpha Epsilon is home to the oldest lodge in the country, so tell us how that building, this lodge, has really shaped Girls Alpha.
Yeah, I'd say lodge is truly the central spot for us at Epsilon. As we just mentioned, every single member is required to live in the lodge. So every single active that came into this school year lived in. So that was 18 members, and so every single one of us lived in the lodge, and that's going to be a trend that we don't plan on changing anytime soon. And so every single pledge that we have had and initiated the last 2 semesters have all signed leases and are also living in the lodge. And so I think what that's created is a space where the lodge isn't just a place you come for social events or a place you come to eat maybe and then just you go off on your way. Lodge is the place where you live, where everything happens, and so it's kind of created a sacred space for us. And I think it's what allowed us to become so close to each other in such a short amount of time, I'd say.
Yeah, the lodge. I mean, and it's helped by all that rich history. I mean, if you ever have the chance to visit, please do. That first floor you walk in, you're like, it's almost strange because you look at it and you'll see composites that are there, and you're like, it's the same. but at the same time, touching again on what Brother Thota said, while we try to build our own kind of identity while respecting the traditions of the past, that we on the upper floors and in the basement, we creating a new space that we can really use. Part of that is the alumni and their capital campaign, but also we have like the third floor lounge. Yes, better word for that. We have a different cheeky name for it. Where we could you will always find people kind of collecting up there to hang out, and it's great to have everyone there because you'll always bump into somebody. There'll always be somebody who's open to do something, and so you're never alone if you don't want to be.
Yeah, I think echoing off what James said, like you always feel like you know what everyone's up to just by being at the lodge because everyone lives there and because everyone's coming in and out. Even if, for example, if I hadn't seen Brother Wishart all week and then I walk down the stairs to leave the building and I see him on his way in, like we catch up really quickly, and it makes sure that we always feel connected and we always feel like we're constantly interacting with each other as opposed to I just joined the fraternity and I don't know any of my brothers. Like we all know each other very well, and I think that's helped a lot.
Yeah, I love the idea of lodge really being the hub for where guys can just be and live their life. Alpha Epsilon's a very special place. It's somewhere I've been blessed to frequent and hope to go many more times. So as you said, Alpha Epsilon is also known for their strong alumni relations, and how have the alumni played a role in returning back to an active Alpha? What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, the big one that we'd like to probably take this moment to thank them for is the capital campaign. For those unaware, there was a large capital campaign that I guess always continues per se, mainly for the educational trust at this point, but to renovate the lodge, the basement, and they're put in central heating and cooling, redo the entire basement, which was in some need of tender loving care after the previous 5-something years. And so that is an enormous amount of support, but beyond financial, some of the alumni, especially I'll call out Brother Kyle and Brother Eric Hildinger, he's our alumni advisor, who just come by. They just show up. Kyle was there for like almost every formal dinner during the colony period, and it's great to be able to always see them and talk to them, and it's a boost when you see here's somebody who's decades out of college and they still care about it, and so it makes you care about it more.
Yeah, and I think you realize how much Epsilon meant to all of our alumni, and so that really does shape our frame of okay, this is not a 4-year thing, this is a lifelong thing, and so it's the alumni that we have to thank for that type of mindset, and that's why I've always loved every single alumni event that we have, like homecoming and things like that. It's so great to be able to meet them, and they're so mutually invested in what we're doing, just like what we're interested in what they're doing, and it's a really, really cool way for us to completely understand what the lodge meant to them and what Epsilon meant to them, even if it was 40 years ago.
Yeah, and I think you gotta know where the alumni really had a great balance. It's not something you find in many other alphas I've seen, where they come around a lot and they really care about the alpha, but they're not controlling the alpha in any way. We have our own freedom, we do what we'd like to do, and events, philanthropy, all of that. But we still get the support from them, we still get to interact with them, and make sure that all of our new actives, our pledges, everybody gets an idea for what the fraternity is outside of just Michigan. Because I think that's one of the most important parts of Chi Psi is that we are a national fraternity, and seeing these alumni come around and hearing about their experiences definitely has helped not only the actives, but definitely the pledges as well.
Yeah, you guys are really working well with the segue part, because my next question is about unique traditions. I heard you guys mention something about dinner parties and formalities, so talk about whatever you want to do with that.
I mean, the big one that you probably sometimes gets thrown around, you'll hear us say spooning. So, and dinner rules. So we've talked about formal dinner, and there are codified rules of specific formal attire, suit and coat, or coat and tie, or dress shoes, and then the spoonings. Should a brother break a dinner rule, or even a guest, though the guests don't have to sing, the brother who hears the brew breaking can spoon them and force them to sing on the radiator. If their guest breaks a rule, the brother who invited the guest must sing for the guest.
And to clarify, the spooning is the brother who hears the roll being broken will hit the back of their spoon on the table. All the other brothers who hear that spoon will join in, and then we have a brother that actually has a position who will be the one to decide whether or not the rule being broken is enough to qualify. Like,
Oh, so there's a judge.
There's an adjudicator.
you can defend
yes.
yourself. Yeah.
Oh wow, very good, very
Yeah.
good.
And the more exaggerated you make the rule breaking sound, the better.
Yeah. So it's become very theatrical, and I think, for us, it's at least during this entire rush process that we had this last year. I know that every single new member, all they would talk about was, wow, this formal dinner thing that you guys do, it's so cool, so unique. That's half the reason I joined, was just because of that's such a cool thing that you have. And so I'm glad we're able to have a tradition like that we hope to carry, for years to come. And it's pretty fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's definitely something to look forward to every week.
that is awesome. And you guys, the traditions you have are just incredible. So then, I'm gonna ask you guys, how has Alpha Epsilon Chi Psi shaped your college career, your life, where you're at now? I mean, this is something that I know you guys said you really expected to do. So how has this formed you all?
I can probably start off with it. So like I mentioned, I didn't really want to join a fraternity when I joined college just because of what I perceived breathed like to be on campus. And when I found out about Chi Psi, it was my late end of my sophomore year of college, and so joining a new organization wasn't something I was super focused on. But I think the reason I gave it a chance was there were three big reasons. So one was that I had a decent group of friends that I was rooming with and that I had enjoyed spending time with, but each of them had something that kind of shaped their time in Michigan, whether it be like a project team that they were involved in for engineering, whether it be like a music group that they were involved in. And every time they would, go out and do these things, I'd be like, what am I doing at the university that has kind of shaped my experience here, as opposed other than just being a student here and hanging out with my friends. And so Chi Psi was a perfect opportunity for that, to meet a group of people that I really connected with, and also could just count on to be there, to hang out with, to talk to. So that was the first reason. The second reason was just having this insane network of people around the country, like Isaac, people behind the camera here, Colin and Luke. We meet all of these other brothers from around the country, and you kind of take it for granted sometimes how any city in the country, you probably know a brother or two from around there. And then the third thing was definitely kind of a focus on academics and professional development, especially at our Alpha. We all cared about growing together, not just growing individually, right? So we're helping each other out. I know Brother Wishart's mom actually came in and did a professional development workshop with us for interview prep and things like this. So things like that I think that's what shaped my experience overall. Yeah.
For me, I can start. So I'm an engineer. I guess I'm still studying to be an engineer with the master's, but so engineers, I can probably speak for a lot of us when I say you get really hyper focused on the engineering, and it kind of starts to consume your life in a lot of ways. And what Chi Psi did for me is it filled a gap that I had in really my college life at that point, of just time to make a larger group of friends, people I could do things with, that hang out, but not that I would throw the academics aside, but you hear everyone say it, but it's kind of hard to really internalize, is that at the end of the day, it's not really your grades, it's what you do in college that matters. And so being a part of this and being able to see it grow, and having that group of friends and that, those social connections, those professional connections, all those connections really enriched what would have otherwise been probably in my case, a pretty heavy, just hyper-focused, get my degree, get out type of college experience.
Yeah, I feel like I can really echo a lot of those things. And for me, I think one of the biggest things that Chi Psi has done for my college experience has just been my ability to be a leader. And I think I've never really had an opportunity before this to have people put their trust and faith in me to kind of lead them in a direction that we want to go in. And I think I've become so much more comfortable in that entire idea of doing that, and I think that that's something that can really benefit my future as I'm exploring different career opportunities and everything. I think I've learned so much about just who I am as a person, how I can grow in ways that are unfathomable without Chi Psi, because it put me in a position that I was uncomfortable with and I probably wouldn't have done otherwise. And it's allowed me to grow way outside of the bounds of what a normal experience would have looked like.
Phenomenal. You guys killed these questions. This is our first undergraduate interview we've ever done on this podcast, and the first time I've been able to host, and I can't thank you all enough for being a part of this. We're going to wrap this up, and I'll just put in a short disclaimer. If anyone is interested in being on the podcast, feel free to reach out. We have pages on the website where you can go and recommend a brother in your alpha, anyone that can recommend, but we're just here to tell stories, and we heard a lot of great ones tonight, so thank you guys for the opportunity. And we are live from the 182nd Convention. We're going to have a good time here in Atlanta, and hopefully see you guys soon. So thanks for the interview.
Thank you.
All right, guys.